Maharashtra political fiasco has re-exploded. And this time we're not talking about the NCP. It is back to the Shiv Sena fiasco. As CNN News18 has managed to access the plea that's been filed by the Uddhav Thackeray camp of the Shiv Sena before the Supreme Court of the country. This plea, in fact, says that disqualification petitions were not decided for over a year. And this plea further goes on to say that the entire Uddhav faction had sent repeated representations to the Speaker of the Maharashtra Assembly, but no hearing was granted. The Speaker, in fact, has not acted in a fair and impartial manner. And this, they say, is violative of the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Remember, this is a plea before the apex court of the country that's been refiled by the Uddhav faction of the Shiv Sena. And we are given to understand that they are talking about the inaction by the Speaker of Maharashtra Assembly. And they further go on to say that the Speaker did not act in a fair and impartial manner. And this is violative of the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Remember, 10th schedule, which in fact looks at the anti-defection law. It includes the provisions regarding the disqualification of MPs and MLAs on the grounds of defection. Now, what are the grounds of disqualification which the plea claims the Speaker did not look at? Number one, if an elected member gives up his membership of a political party voluntarily, and that's exactly what they are claiming, that the Shinde faction rebelled against the original Shiv Sena. They defected and joined the alliance with the Bharatiya Janata Party, and this is violative of the 10th schedule, and this comes under anti-defection law. And the Speaker was not taking any action because he has BJP and Shinde faction leanings. That's the allegation that the faction is going about presenting in the form of this particular plea that's been now filed in the Supreme Court. Let me take this across to my legal correspondent Ananya, who will offer more perspective on this big story that's now coming out as far as the Maharashtra political crisis is concerned. Ananya, if you look at this plea specifically, the fact that there was a setback that the Uddhav faction received from the Supreme Court just 2 months ago, how is this plea going to be any helpful to the political party?
Well, the Uddhav faction has now yet again knocked the doors of the Supreme Court. The Maharashtra political fiasco has re-exploded. And what has been said in this petition is that, the disqualification petitions have not been decided by the Speaker yet, even after there were constant directions from the Supreme Court. And in fact, the May 11 judgment of the Supreme Court, which in fact gave a big setback to the Uddhav Thackeray camp, had a very, very little ray of hope, wherein it was said that, the Speaker had to decide these disqualification proceedings into a stipulated time period, but the same did not happen. And that's the reason why, in fact, Sunil Prabhu has now again approached the doors of the Supreme Court, clearly saying that, they've constantly sent representations to the Speaker, but no hearing has been granted. In fact, it has also been stated that the Speaker has not acted in a fair and impartial manner, and this is a clear violation of the 10th schedule of the Constitution of India. They also further go on to say that the Speaker, by his inaction, has precipitated gross constitutional sins committed by the members of the Maha Assembly, and that would actually lead on, in fact, to a constitutional violation of the judgment of the Supreme Court. So how does it play up before the topmost court of the country? That only time can tell when the matter reaches to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court actually hears and conducts a hearing in this particular matter. So we'll have to wait until that happens. But very clearly, the Uddhav Thackeray making their last moves, making any moves possible. And this is also happening at a time when the government is getting strengthened with the NCP breaking away and coming back. That too is another legal battle and can, be coming up in this case. So we'll have to wait until that all of that happens. But at this point of time, this is the big move coming in from the Uddhav Thackeray.
Ananya, help us understand this one aspect that at that time, in the May 11th judgment, the Supreme Court was very, very scathing in its observation against the Uddhav faction. They also went on to claim that Uddhav Thackeray resigning even before facing the floor test has really not gone in his favor. Will all of that not have a bearing on this particular plea?
Well, that won't really have a bearing on that aspect, because this plea is restricted with regards to the disqualification petitions being decided, or those members who had gone away from the Eknath Shinde faction, will they be disqualified by the Speaker or not? So the ball still lies with the Speaker. The only direction that the top court can actually give out is that it can actually now set a time period, a specific time period in which a hearing could be imparted to, in fact, the Uddhav Thackeray faction, and these disqualification proceedings can be decided.
Ananya, this plea essentially is also demanding a speedy action by the apex court of the country in the disqualification procedure of the rebel Shinde faction. However, there has been a verdict already in their favor. So how does one look at this plea in that regard?
Well, when the Supreme Court had passed that particular order, staying the government, saying that, the Eknath Shinde government would sustain in the state of Maharashtra, it had given a clear direction to the Maharashtra Speaker to actually decide these disqualification petitions. So the Uddhav Thackeray faction is constantly claiming that, this is not being done, this is a violation of the judgment. So more or less, this can only affect in the disqualification of those members. And that too by the Speaker, because the Supreme Court itself might not disqualify or decide these disqualification proceedings, but to set a timeline or a stipulated time period in which, in fact, the the Speaker can actually decide on these particular petitions.
Okay, all right, Ananya, thank you so much for offering your perspective on this big story that's coming out of Maharashtra.